My mother-in-law had my passcode. She used it to text my friends and ruin my reputation. I trusted my mother-in-law with my phone. We were sitting together at a family dinner, and she asked to use it to look up a recipe. I unlocked it and handed it over without a second thought. She was family. Family was safe. The next week, my friends started acting strange. They stopped returning my calls. They gave me one-word responses to texts. They made excuses to avoid meeting up. I thought I had done something wrong, said something offensive, crossed some invisible line. Then my best friend finally called me and asked why I had sent her those horrible messages about her recent breakup. I hadn't sent any messages about her breakup. I barely knew the details, but my mother-in-law had known. She had been listening. She had taken my phone and texted everyone in my contact list, pretending to be me. She had said cruel things about my friends, my coworkers, even my own family. She had spent a week systematically destroying my relationships, and I hadn't noticed until my social circle was in ruins. The dinner had been going so well. That was the cruelest part of it. The part I replayed over and over in my mind like a film stuck on a loop. My mother-in-law, Winifred, had been in a surprisingly good mood. She had complimented the casserole I made, asked about my job with genuine curiosity, and even laughed at one of my jokes. For a brief, foolish moment, I had allowed myself to believe that we were finally turning a corner. After years of tension and passive-aggressive comments, maybe she had decided to accept me. My husband, Leonard, had been thrilled. He loved his mother, despite everything, and he had always hoped we could find common ground. He kept squeezing my hand under the table, his eyes bright with gratitude and relief. I squeezed back, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt around Winifred in years. This was good. This was progress. It was near the end of the evening when Winifred asked to borrow my phone. "I want to look up that dessert recipe your aunt mentioned," she said, her voice light and casual. "The one with the caramel sauce. I think I'd like to try it for the holidays." I hesitated for just a fraction of a second. My phone was private, full of messages and photos and conversations I didn't necessarily want anyone else to see. But she was family. She was asking for something innocent, and I didn't want to ruin the fragile peace we had established. "Sure," I said, unlocking my phone and handing it over. "Just don't read my texts." Winifred laughed, a warm, tinkling sound that seemed genuine. "Oh, I wouldn't dream of it, sweetheart. I just want to find a recipe." I turned back to the table, engaging in conversation with Leonard and his father. I didn't watch what Winifred was doing on my phone. I didn't think I needed to. She was searching for a recipe, just like she said. What could possibly go wrong? It wasn't until 3 days later that I realized my mistake. I had texted my best friend Adelaide that morning, asking if she wanted to get coffee after work. She had left me on read. That was unusual. Adelaide was the type of person who responded instantly, who sent long, rambling voice notes and reacted to every message with a string of emojis. She didn't ignore people. She especially didn't ignore me. I tried again in the afternoon. "Hey, everything okay? You've been quiet today. Let me know if you want to talk." She read it. She didn't respond. That evening, I called her. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried not to panic. She was probably busy. She had a demanding job, a busy life, and sometimes she just needed space. I told myself to be patient, to give her time, to stop being so needy. But then I noticed the pattern spreading. My cousin, the one I had grown up with like a sister, posted a photo on social media, and I commented, "You look beautiful. Miss you so much. We need to catch up soon." She didn't respond. She didn't even like the comment. A week ago, she would have called me immediately to make plans. My coworker, a woman I had lunch with every Wednesday, suddenly stopped inviting me. I found her in the break room with the other admin staff, and they all fell silent when I walked in. They exchanged glances that I couldn't interpret. My neighbor, who I had loaned my lawnmower to, sent me a text saying, "I'll return your mower tomorrow. You don't need to worry about me anymore." The wording was odd, defensive, like she thought I had accused her of something. And then there was my sister. She called me late one night, her voice tight with barely contained anger. "I can't believe you would say something like that," she said. "I thought we were closer than that. I thought we trusted each other." I was completely confused. "What are you talking about? What did I say?" "You know exactly what you said. The text you sent me last week about Mom's illness, about how I was just faking concern for attention, about how I've always been selfish and dramatic." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I never sent you a text like that. I would never say something like that." "Well, you did," my sister said coldly. "I have the screenshot to prove it." She sent it to me. The message was from my number, sent to her 3 days after the dinner. It was cruel, cutting, designed to wound. It used intimate details she had shared with me in confidence. It was exactly the kind of thing that would destroy a relationship. "I didn't send that," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone else did. Someone must have hacked my phone." My sister laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sure, someone hacked your phone to send a message about my personal life. That makes perfect sense." She hung up before I could explain. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding, trying to piece together what had happened, the timeline, the text, the sudden shift in everyone's behavior. And then I remembered the dinner. I remembered handing my phone to Winifred. I remembered her smile, her laugh, her casual request to look up a recipe. I scrambled to check my sent messages. I scrolled through my text history, my stomach sinking with every new discovery. There were dozens of messages I didn't remember sending. Messages to my closest friends, my family, even a few colleagues. They were all cruel. They were all designed to cause maximum damage. They used personal information, intimate details, things I had shared with Winifred in what I thought were moments of vulnerability. She had been gathering intelligence for months, storing it up, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. And I had given her the keys to the kingdom. I called Leonard, my voice shaking. I need you to come home. Right now. What's wrong? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Are you okay? Your mother, I said. Your mother has been texting everyone in my life, pretending to be me. She's ruined my relationships with everyone I love. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. That doesn't sound like something she would do, Leonard said finally. Are you sure? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone else got access to your phone. Leonard, I said, my voice sharp. I handed her my phone at dinner. She had it for 10 minutes. And suddenly everyone I know is getting horrible texts from my number. What else could it be? He was silent again. I could practically hear him trying to reconcile his image of his mother with what I was telling him. He loved her. He had always loved her. And the idea that she could do something so malicious was difficult for him to accept. I'll talk to her, he said finally. I'll ask her about it. Maybe there's an explanation, I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that there was no explanation, that his mother had crossed a line so fundamental that there was no coming back from it. But I held my tongue. I needed him on my side. I couldn't afford to push him away. Please, I said quietly. Just come home. Leonard arrived an hour later. I had spent the intervening time cataloging every single message. There were at least 30, sent over the course of a week. They had been carefully timed, sent at odd hours when I wouldn't notice, spaced out to avoid suspicion. Winifred had been methodical. She had been patient. And she had succeeded. My friendships were in tatters. My relationship with my family was fractured. My colleagues were avoiding me. My reputation was destroyed, and the worst part, she had done it all with a smile. Leonard called his mother that evening. I sat beside him, my hands clenched into fists, listening to the conversation unfold. Winifred answered on the first ring, her voice bright and cheerful. Leonard! What a lovely surprise. I was just thinking about you. Mom? He said, his voice strained. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. There was a pause. Then Winifred's voice came through, slightly wary. Of course, sweetheart. You know I'm always honest with you. Did you use my wife's phone to send messages to her friends and family? Another pause, longer this time. When Winifred spoke again, her voice had shifted to one of wounded innocence. I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I do something like that? Because the messages were sent from her phone, Leonard pressed. And you were the only one who had access to it that night. Winifred laughed, but it was a brittle sound, lacking her usual warmth. Oh, Leonard, you're so silly. I just looked up a recipe. I didn't send any messages. Maybe your wife is just feeling a little paranoid. She's always been so sensitive. I grabbed the phone from Leonard, unable to control myself any longer. Winifred, I have screenshots of every single message you sent. I have timestamps. I have proof. You destroyed my relationships, and you're going to answer for it. The laughter stopped. When Winifred spoke again, her voice was cold, stripped of all pretense. You don't have any proof. You have messages from your phone. That doesn't prove anything. I have the times, I said. I have the days. And I know exactly when you had access to my phone. If I go to the phone company, they can trace the IP addresses. They can prove it was you. There was a long silence. I could practically hear her calculating her options, trying to figure out how to spin the situation in her favor. Fine, she said finally, her voice dripping with disdain. Maybe I did send a few messages, but I was only trying to help. You have no idea how you come across to other people. You're dismissive, you're rude, you're completely self-absorbed. I was just trying to show you what people really think of you. I felt like I had been slapped. You destroyed my relationships because you wanted to prove a point. I did it because you needed to learn a lesson. Winifred snapped. You've been coasting through life on your little friendships and your little career, thinking everyone loves you. I wanted to show you the truth. People don't actually like you. They only tolerate you because they have to. Leonard took the phone back, his face pale. Mom, that's enough. You're not helping. You're hurting. And you need to stop. Winifred's voice softened, becoming almost pleading. Leonard, sweetheart, I'm your mother. I love you. I'm just trying to protect you. This woman you married, she's not good for you. She's manipulative. She's controlling. She's ruining your life. You're wrong, Leonard said, his voice shaking. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if you can't see that, then maybe we need to take a break from each other. The call ended abruptly. Leonard dropped the phone onto the couch and buried his face in his hands. I sat beside him, my heart aching for both of us. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I know this is hard for you. He looked up, his eyes red. Why does she do this? Why can't she just be happy for me? Why does she have to destroy everything? I didn't have an answer. I didn't think there was one. The next few days were a blur of damage control. I called everyone who had received a message from Winifred trying to explain what had happened. Some of them believed me. Others didn't. The ones who didn't were the hardest to lose. Adelaide, my best friend, was the one I was most afraid to call. I had texted her 20 times, called her 10 times, left voicemails begging for a chance to explain. She finally called me back 3 days later, her voice cold and distant. I don't know what to believe, she said. I got those messages from your number. They were cruel and personal. And now you're telling me your mother-in-law sent them. Please, I beg. I know it sounds insane, but I have proof. I have her admitting it. Please, just give me a chance to explain in person. She was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion. Okay, coffee tomorrow. But I'm not promising anything. I showed up at the coffee shop with my phone, my proof, my heart in my throat. Adelaide was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. She looked at me with wary eyes. I told her everything. The dinner, the recipe, the text I never sent. I showed her the message from my sister, the screenshot of Winifred's admission. I laid out every single piece of evidence I had. Adelaide listened in silence. When I finished, she took a long breath and let it out slowly. I believe you, she said finally. I don't know why it took me so long to see it, but I believe you. I almost cried with relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. But, she continued, I need you to understand how much this hurt me. Those messages were awful. They brought up things I told you in confidence. Even if your mother-in-law sent them, the damage is still real. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I know, and I'm so sorry. I never should have let her have access to my phone. I should have been more careful. I should have protected you. Adelaide reached across the table and took my hand. We'll figure this out. But you need to deal with your mother-in-law. You need to set boundaries, because this can't happen again. I promised her it wouldn't. And I meant it. The confrontation with Winifred came 3 weeks later. It was at a family gathering, a cousin's birthday party at a restaurant downtown. I hadn't wanted to go. Every instinct told me to stay as far away from Winifred as possible, but Leonard had insisted. He said we needed to show a united front, to prove to the family that we weren't going to be driven apart by his mother's manipulation. I walked into the restaurant with my head held high, my hand clasped firmly in Leonard's. Winifred was already there, seated at the head of the table with her usual regal composure. She smiled when she saw us. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Leonard, she said warmly, I'm so glad you came. And you brought your wife. How lovely. I didn't respond. I simply took my seat and focused on the menu. But Winifred wasn't done with me yet. I heard you've been telling people some terrible things about me, she said, her voice carrying across the table, spreading rumors, accusing me of things I didn't do. I'm surprised at you. I thought we were family. I looked up, meeting her gaze directly. We are family. That's why what you did was so hurtful. Family doesn't destroy each other. The table fell silent. Leonard squeezed my hand under the table. Winifred's smile faltered, just for a moment. I have no idea what you're talking about, she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. I've only ever tried to help you. I've been nothing but kind. I pulled out my phone and opened my recording app. Would you like to hear the recording of the phone call where you admitted to sending those messages? Winifred's face went pale. The mask of composure slipped, revealing the anger underneath. You recorded me? That's illegal. It's not illegal, I said calmly. I'm one of the parties on the call. I have every right to record it, and I'm willing to play it for everyone here. I hit play. Winifred's voice filled the restaurant, cold and dismissive. Fine, maybe I did send a few messages, but I was only trying to help. The table erupted in whispers. Winifred's face went from pale to red to white again. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. How dare you, she hissed. How dare you embarrass me like this? You embarrassed yourself, I said, my voice steady. I'm just showing everyone the truth. Leonard stood up beside me. Mom, we're done. I'm done. We're going to take a break from you, a long one. And if you can't respect that, then maybe we'll take a permanent break. Winifred's eyes darted around the table looking for allies. Finding none. Her siblings were staring at the floor. Her cousins were exchanging uneasy glances. She had no one. I'm your mother, she whispered, her voice cracking. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, Leonard said. I love you. I always will. But I can't keep letting you destroy the people I love. It's not fair to my wife. It's not fair to me. And it's not fair to the family you keep pretending to care about. We left the restaurant. We didn't look back. In the car, Leonard started crying, silent tears streaming down his face. I reached over and took his hand. Are you okay? I asked. No, he admitted, but I will be. We will be. The next few months were difficult. Winifred didn't take the break well. She called incessantly, left voicemails alternating between rage and pleading, showed up at our house unannounced. We held firm. We didn't answer. We didn't engage. Slowly, the rest of the family started coming around. They had heard the recording. They had seen the evidence. They couldn't deny what Winifred had done. Some of them reached out to me, apologizing for not seeing it sooner. Others distanced themselves from her entirely. My friendships took time to heal. Adelaide and I started meeting for coffee again, slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. My cousin eventually accepted my explanation, though I could tell our relationship would never be the same. My sister and I went to therapy together, working through the hurt and anger. The wounds healed, but they left scars. I was more careful with my phone. I changed my passcode, enabled two-factor authentication, never let anyone else touch it. I became more guarded about personal information, more wary of people who asked too many questions. And Winifred? She never really changed. A year later, she reached out, asking for another chance. We agreed to meet cautiously in a neutral location. The meeting was tense, filled with silences and half-truths, but it was a start. We set boundaries, limited contact, supervised visits. She hated it, I could tell, but she accepted it because the alternative was no contact at all. It wasn't the relationship I had wanted. It wasn't the family I had dreamed of, but it was what we had. And for now, it was enough. I still have the recording saved on my phone. I've never had to play it again, but it's there. A reminder of what happens when trust is broken, when family becomes an enemy. Because sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. And sometimes the only way to survive is to walk away.